Hi everybody and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam and today we're going to be talking about one of the things that I think is the most important and in some ways one of the most exciting days of pre-season when the fixtures get released. Now fixture day, so important when you're thinking about your FPL team because those that start the season well are the ones that you really do want to invest in ahead of the new season. Now for me, one of the key features of the Fantasy Football Scout website that I absolutely use every single week, multiple times every single week throughout the season is the season ticker. Now being able to use the season ticker to manipulate the date ranges in terms of the game weeks that you want to look at, to be able to change the different difficulties that some of the teams have put up against them. If, for example, one of the teams has had a very bad start to the season, but they're still rating quite high on difficulty for other clubs to play against them, you have the ability on the Scout fixture ticker to change that and to make it customizable for you. And that's something that I do weekly as the season goes on. Using that ticker helps so much with my planning and making decisions about which players I want to invest in. So this video is going to be all about the teams that start the season with the best form. And there are a few of them that shout out to you when you look at that ticker. Some big clubs in there with Manchester United and Liverpool, and that is always really lovely from an FPL perspective to have some of our big six, our big players that we can choose from in early season, knowing that the fixtures match the skill that we've seen and the form that we've seen and the historical records that we've seen from these players over the course of seasons gone by. So Manchester United and Liverpool looking to be really good, promising options for us early in the season. But then we've also got a couple of our maybe lesser well-known or lesser kind of chosen, lesser selected teams, the likes of Brighton and Watford. These players will not have 50% ownership. They're unlikely to be kind of the ones that everyone is selecting, but they are likely to be popular amongst the FPL community. These are the teams that the community across Twitter, across the content creators who will be looking at and thinking, yes, there is some great value for money here, and they have the fixtures to back that up. And then of course we have Everton, new manager Everton, so we're yet to see what's going to happen with them, but they're another team that consistently have really good fixtures, particularly to start the season. Now I'm going to start by looking at the first 5 game weeks, and the reason I've picked to do the first 5 game weeks rather than maybe a longer period of time is this is how I start my season. I start during pre-season looking at in particular the first 5 game weeks, and then once I've got a team that I'm kind of happy with for the first 5 game weeks, I expand it and have a look up to game week 8. And in doing that, I'm ensuring that I'm keeping as many of these good players as possible for this opening run, because of course we'll have transfers that we can use to make changes to the ones that you want to from game weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up until game week 8. But ideally I'm looking to hold my wild card for as long as possible, and therefore if there's the possibility of building a team that doesn't look like it needs any transfers at all from game weeks 1 to game week 8, that's the team I want to go with, knowing then that my transfers are just ones that I want to make based upon form and based upon players that suddenly come up and I want to be able to pounce on them rather than having other issues that I have to deal with and therefore potentially taking some points hits early on. So these are the best players, the best teams in theory in the fixture tickers for game weeks 1 to 5. I think it's important that we look at the fixture ticker like this. This is sorted by just overall, and it's important to look at it overall. But for me, as an FPL manager, one of the things I really like to do is divide that up even further, because when we look at this, we can see Everton really nicely at the top. But I'm going to show you in a minute what happens when we do it by attack and by defence. And Everton do slide down the list. They don't disappear off altogether. They are still there, but they aren't as high as they look at our overall fixtures. So when you're trying to decide between a specific set of defenders, sometimes actually it's even more useful to look at it from a defensive season ticker point of view. So let's start then with the defenders. So when we sort the season ticker by defence for game weeks 1 to game week 5, we see Brighton sitting nice and pretty at the top, and that is a lovely position to be in because they enable you to pick some really good options at cheap budget prices. Now this week we've seen Matt Ryan disappear off to Real Sociedad, so we will no longer have to deal with him as a concern for Sanchez and his game time. So Sanchez is at 100% now going to be Brighton's number one, which means actually if you want to go with the double up in the Brighton goalkeeper position, you've only got to spend, 8.5 million, which is absolutely perfect from an FPL perspective starting the season. And when you look across those first 5 fixtures, I can't see that there's many goalkeepers that you would want to start ahead of Sanchez, and therefore going with that double up feels like a nice idea. But we can also invest, of course, in their defence. So we've got players like Dunk, who's coming in at 5 million, does have some attacking threat, but underneath him you have a significant choice of players at 4.5 million. So Lamptey coming back from injury at 4.5 million looks to be, from my perspective anyway, really good option. We've also got Ben White. Now, Ben White I'm mentioning at this point because a lot of chatter that he is going to end up being an Arsenal player this summer. The positive thing for Ben White owners, if that does happen, is that he stays in the defensive fixture ticker with Arsenal, who sit, as you can see there, just above Spurs at the bottom of the graphic. So they have a difficult couple of fixtures in game week 2 and game week 3. So from that perspective, you potentially would prefer him to be at Brighton, but actually afterwards the fixtures do take a turn for the better with Norwich and then Burnley. So having Ben White going into pre-season actually feels like it might be quite a nice idea, given that you're safe even if he goes to Arsenal. Other teams that we have on there then, Liverpool. Now these are going to be the most expensive defenders that you can buy pretty much across the game. Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in this season at 7.5 million, but did register 2 goals and 8 assists last season. We've got Robertson coming in just 0.5 cheaper at 7 million, registered 1 goal but 9 assists last season. And then Van Dijk, who of course missed the majority of last season through injury, coming in at 6.5 million. Now their ability to keep clean sheets in the Liverpool team makes them a really wise investment. Couple that with the fixtures and there should be plenty of clean sheets available here. I do have some slight concerns that obviously Trent was going to be away with England and then got injured. That's not ideal. We've seen Robertson play for Scotland in the Euro Championships this summer, and of course Van Dijk is still on his road to recovery. So maybe we haven't got the defensive security yet at Liverpool, but the fixtures are certainly nice enough that there should be clean sheets there early on in the season. And as we know with Robertson and Trent, they're perfectly capable of getting plenty of attacking returns. When we have a little bit look further down the list, we still keep Everton, as I mentioned before. I think if you're going with an Everton defender, you're going with Luca Dean. 5.5 million is going to cost you, but with the fixtures that Everton have, it looks worth every penny to spend it on him. And then we have Brentford, who are really, really interesting because, of course, after that Arsenal game, their fixtures look nice. Crystal Palace, Villa, and then Brighton and Wolves, potentially in there for some clean sheets. And these guys are cheap, 4.5 million, going to offer you good value for money. Dalsgaard, Janssen, Pinnock, all of these playing in the Championship playoff final. So would expect them to continue playing in defence for Brentford. And if you're just looking for a cheap benchable option, one that you're happy to bench over the course of the majority of the season, then investing 4.5 from a Brentford perspective might just be a really good idea. Watford are the ones that really intrigue me here, and as I mentioned in my rotating pairs video a few weeks ago, they are the ones that I am going to invest in from a rotating perspective. So Rauto, 4.5 million, absolutely perfect from that perspective. 18 shots last season, 14 of those from inside the box. That is exactly where I want my defender to be, with the potential to get me some attacking returns. But not only that, Watford had the best defensive record in the Championship last season, keeping 23 clean sheets and only conceding 30 goals. More than that, once the new manager arrived, they only conceded 3 goals in 13 home games and kept 11 clean sheets across that period. So Watford looking phenomenal. We saw with Villa last season that they've got really great defensive record. Target with 16 clean sheets last season, Mings with 14 clean sheets, both of them with attacking returns, both goals and assists last season, so looking like nice options. And then of course at the bottom we've got the likes of Soufal and Creswell at West Ham, Tierney, potentially Ben White at Arsenal, and then Spurs. Really interested to see what happens there. Game week 1, not ideal, and I don't think you want a Spurs defender against Manchester City. But going forward, there is definitely potential there when we get to understand who is going to be Nuno's starting defenders. Looks like Doherty and Reguilon on the wings, but who's going to be the central partnership there? Is it going to be Rodon? Is Alderweireld going to stay at the club? Is Connor Cody going to come if he does at 4.5? great option. So defensively looking really nice. When we have a look at the season ticker from an attack perspective then, we see Brighton still sitting at the top, but the rest of the teams have changed. And this is why I think sometimes it's really important that we make a difference between just looking at the ticker and looking at the ticker when it's sorted by defending and attacking. So from an attack perspective, with Brighton, it is a bit more difficult. Obviously, Welbeck has rejoined the club now, so there is potential there, but I think there are other better options. Trossard was their best scoring midfielder last season with 5 goals and an assist, so potentially you're going to go there. But actually, I think Brighton defensively look to be the ones I would be trying to invest in. And then moving further down, of course, we keep our big hitters. So Manchester City, Gundogan 13 goals last season. Sterling had a fantastic tournament at the Euros, got 10 goals and an assist last season. He's only going to cost you 11 million this year, so that's a little bit cheaper. If he can continue his Euro form, and if indeed he's still at Man City for the start of the season, could be potentially a good option. And of course there's Kevin De Bruyne if he stays fit and available, looking like a nice option. We're yet to see who's going to play up top for Manchester City this summer. Will Harry Kane make the move? We're yet to know that, but they are sitting really nice and high on that fixture ticker, so you are likely to want to invest in the Manchester City attack. Even if you don't want to do it for game week 1 and that fixture against Spurs, you certainly are going to want to for the games that follow, particularly when you're looking at those games in game week 2 and game week 5 against Norwich, and Southampton. Looking further down the list then, Liverpool, Salah, obviously the top goal scorer for midfielders last season. Registering 22 goals, going to cost you 12.5 million, but worth every single penny, and the fixture ticker proves that too. If you want to double him up with Jota, I don't think that's a bad idea either. Manchester United follow, of course, they've got Bruno, who was the second best scoring midfielder last season, but they've also added to the mix with Jadon Sancho, so we're yet to see kind of how that will play out. And of course Sancho has had a long campaign, as has Rashford with England, so we get to see how this is going to work in terms of players returning late from international duty because they've stayed in tournaments like the Euros, but also like Copa America. So we have to kind of play that out and see what the managers say. Klopp has hinted that anybody that was away on international duty will get 3 weeks holiday on their return to the club, which would mean probably not being available for game week 1. But let's see how that pans out over the course of the summer. But there are some really big clubs in here with some big potential for attacking returns. Moving on to Aston Villa then, of course, last season, Ollie Watkins, 14 goals, 9 assists, was phenomenal. Taking a price jump this year, but I still think he's one of the best value strikers in the game for the 21-22 season. Add to him El Ghazi in the middle with 10 goals. Of course, Grealish was injured for a large part of last season, and we're yet to see where he's going to play next season. But if he stays, he's only going to strengthen Aston Villa. And they've added to that mix with Emi Buendia, who I think is one of the signings of the summer. 16 goals, 15 assists in 39 championship games last season. Buendia has proven he can play in the Premier League, as we saw with Norwich a couple of seasons ago. What a signing this is for Aston Villa, and he is one that is high on my watch list going into the 21-22 season. So my point, I guess, is that when we're looking at the fixture tickers and when we're sorting them, have a little look at it in a bit more detail. We start to see clubs appearing in this list that we haven't seen overall in the season ticker or in the defence, like Wolves, for example. So really think about those decisions. Use the season tickers to help you over the course of the pre-season, because if you can set your team up to be defensively solid and target those teams that have the good defence and target the teams that have got the potential for some really good attacking returns, then you put yourself in a position where you are using your free transfers to hit form players rather than because you are needing to move players out when the form doesn't happen or when the fixtures don't happen. So make those decisions wisely. Use the season ticker. Save it as a bookmark. If you aren't already a Fantasy Football Scout member, sign up. There's currently 20% off, and there is a link in the description below so that you can get that deal. Honestly, I'd pay the monthly membership just for the season ticker alone. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, leave me a like, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and let me know in the comments who you are planning to target in terms of the players and the teams with the best fixtures to start the season. Thanks, guys.